Hello and welcome to my video. Today we'll be adventuring as Wanda, with the goal of defeating every major boss as fast as we can. And this run, while nothing really insane happened, ended up being one of my best runs ever. But in case you don't know much about Wanda, let me briefly explain this character to you. Her main mechanic is the health being replaced by age. Her minimum age is of 20 and her maximum age is of 80, at which she dies instantly upon reaching. In other words, she has the most amount of HP when she is at 20 years old and the lowest at 79, 80 being 0 HP. Naturally, she's not immune to damage. Armor does work to reduce damage and all damage is calculated in years. She also grows old over time, which basically means you're constantly losing HP. There's only one item in the game that is able to reduce her age, the Ageless Watch. She starts with one of it and can craft more. The Ageless Watch has a cooldown of 2 minutes, but the cooldown is not shared globally, which means you can and you want to make several of them as healing. It would be simple enough to stay as young as possible at all times, but you do want to be older. She becomes middle-aged at the age of 36 and old at the age of 65, having a few specific benefits on doing so. The biggest benefit of staying old is, by far, getting the highest amount of damage possible on her unique weapon, the alarming clock. Which means to use this weapon effectively, you have to accept the risk of staying at low health. Aside from aging and the alarming clock, the only mechanic worth mentioning is the ability of teleporting. You can make watches and set them to a specific location, which allows you to teleport there once a day. And this will be the main time saver of this run. But naturally, you don't get all of it for free, so our first goal is to make the weapon as early as possible. My first step is exploring the mosaic biome to find graves and dig them up for gems. To make the alarming clock, I will need the shadow manipulator, which needs gems to be crafted. I'm also intentionally getting insane in order to get nightmare fuel. I was able to find a living tree at day 2, which was pretty lucky. And just like that, at day 5 I had my alchemy engine and shadow manipulator. But I was still missing one key component for the alarming clock, marble, so I had to keep exploring and hoping to find it. I ended up finding the terrarium before it, and lucky enough I found the nightmare werepig upon entering the caves, just chilling close to the stairs, so that's the marble acquired. But I decided to explore just a little bit more before returning to my base to craft the clock, so I just fought the Eye of Terror during nighttime. Needing more living logs for the ruins, I chopped down dead trees, hoping to spawn a tree guard. With living logs, the Eye of Terror defeated, and now with the brand new alarming clock, I made my way to the ruins. When in the ruins, I prefer to go straight to Ancient Guardian. If you get lucky enough, you can get all the gems you need from its chest, in which case you won't have to spend as much time on mining statues. Once we found it, we made quick work of it with the insane damage of the alarming clock. The chest was pretty good, but I got no yellow gems, so off to mining. Meet the CEO of Don't Starve, Mr. Chairman Shadling. During the nightmare phase, he will spawn in one of the ruins chairs, and you can kill him to get the chair blueprints, which will be important later. Once I got all the items necessary, I crafted all the items I needed to progress, some armor and a bunch of Thulecite walls. The Thulecite walls can be destroyed with a hammer for Thulecite fragments, which are used to make the timepieces for Wanda's clocks. This way, we effectively transform Thulecite into fragments, and with this amount, we'll have more than enough for the rest of the run. But now it is time to face the Nightmare Werepig. The most annoying mechanic from this boss is idling and restoring HP, waiting until you just approach it to snap into attacking you. But the range with the alarming clock makes this fight fairly easy. And now we have access to the Dreadstone helmet. This helmet not only reduces damage by 90%, but it also restores its durability over time by draining your sanity. And that's a positive side effect. Wanda's alarming clock needs Nightmare Fuel to be charged, so I will need a lot of Nightmare Fuel throughout the run. Getting insane from the helmet allows me to constantly farm the nightmare creatures spawning. And I'm also occasionally eating raw meats or cooked monster meat for the same reason. But now I'm out of the caves, so I started looking for the marble pieces. But this time I got a bit unlucky. It took me 7 days to find and assemble all the marble pieces, which is almost an hour of just walking around and being extremely bored. Luckily for the YouTube watchers, I can just skip this entire thing. Not so lucky for the Twitch viewers though. Now only having less than a couple days to winter, I spent my time farming basic resources for the rest of the run, like rocks, boards, and cut stone. Items specifically needed for pros tasks later. At day 21 as Wanda, it's mandatory to immediately kill mech tusks for their tusks, which is the key item to make the teleports. Getting 3 tusks after getting the Lazy Explorer from AG was very lucky. This will be all I'll need for the rest of the run. But it's getting dark and it's about time to fight the shadow pieces. And in the next night, we started the Twins of Terror fights. I could get hit here on purpose just to stay over 65 years to get the big damage, but I decided to just play it safe. After all, even middle-aged, you still deal a lot more damage than a normal character. And then we spent the next day searching for Claw's stash and the deers. And at night, now at old age, we completely destroy the Twins of Terror. And right on the next day, we fight Claws. In a perfect world, we would have had the time to fight Bee Queen late autumn, but we still had a super fast start of winter, basically knocking out most of the goals we had before day 30. So we had just enough time to defeat Bee Queen next. Bee Queen is probably the worst matchup for Wanda. Damage is very hard to avoid during this fight, so the strategy is to use Knight Armors, since it gives 95% damage reduction. Combining it with Pan Flutes and several Ageless Watches, we are able to face this boss with not too much trouble. I was supposed to also bring a Magiluminescence to run away from the Grumblebees, but I forgot. Just before Deerclops spawned, I assembled my setup for the Moon Altar events, killed Deerclops, and on the next night, we acquired the Moon Staff. And immediately deconstructed it to get the Iridescent Gem, which I used in the archives to get the Astro Detector blueprints. Needless to say how nice it is to instantly get back to my base after going so far away from it. So I found the altar pieces and visited Lunar Island to set a teleport there. By using a purple gem on your teleport watch, you can create a rift that allows Wanda and other players to jump through and teleport to that location. In this case, I'll be using this rift to teleport with the statues to Lunar Island. Unfortunately here, I meant to bring the Beefalo with me to carry the Lunar Island statues to the Fissure Triangle, but I ended up forgetting my Beefalo saddle on the backpack. And since there's a full day of cooldown when you use the teleport watch, and tomorrow would be spring and all the Beefalos would go in heat, I had to carry the statues myself. My next step is to get a few purple gems that I left in the ruins, since I didn't have enough inventory slots to also bring them to the surface earlier in this run. So I also took this opportunity to set up a teleport there. And now for my absolute favorite part of the run, even better than looking for the marble pieces, is looking for cookie cutters. But this time I actually got very good luck and found them just a few minutes after I started sailing. Imagine a world where you could just do this consistently every run and not spend an hour hoping to simply get lucky. Sounds like a world I would like to live in. Anyway, now we have every necessary item for Pearl, so we can go there and complete tasks. The tasks we complete here in spring are completing her house, which is mandatory and gives 3 points. Planting berry bushes, drying wrecks, killing the lure plant, planting flowers, giving her an umbrella, underwater salvageables, and for the final one, the newest task, making her a chair. Remember the chair we got from the Shadeling in the ruins? You can build this chair, which she doesn't like, but she gives you the Sawhorse Blueprints, a station in which you can craft several decorations. And if you use this station to build a wooden chair for her, that counts as a task completed when she sits on it. But right before we leave, we do something evil. I'm burning down the berry bushes, but there's a reason for it. Once I activate the lunar rifts, bright shades would spawn here since I planted those. And I want them to spawn in my base so I can fight them for their drops. So yeah, sorry not sorry, Pearl. Now, back in the day, it was a very good idea to deal with Dragonfly before going to the ruins, which would give you a nice haul of gems for the crafts. However, this has changed since the Crab King rework. To fight the new Crab King, you want to use one of each gem, which barely buffs him. And conveniently enough, Dragonfly drops at least one of each gem type. So in my opinion, the best time to defeat this boss is just before Crab King. So with her defeated and no rain, it is time for the Crab King fights. The setup I'm going for here is, as I mentioned, one of each gem. And then we add the pearl, which totals 7 gems, so we have 2 more slots to go. The important thing to mention here is adding 1 gem of any kind will now massively increase one of its mechanics corresponding to the gem's color. And some gems are more doable than others. While this is not the only possible setup, in my opinion is the easiest one. I'm adding 2 green gems as the final ones. It buffs the number of claws that spawns around the boat, which sounds annoying, but as long as you stay at the center of a wooden boat, the claws won't really reach you. Which means you are buffing something that you can almost completely ignore. And you don't have to be Wanda and use the alarming clock's range for this setup to work. It works with any character. The fight was over, but I goofed up. The entire video so far was recorded during a long 8-hour stream, so I was very tired here, and for some reason instead of simply placing a new boat to jump on, I decided to jump on the boat I used through the previous phase, which I knew was already falling apart. I tried to react to it by going back to the ice, but Chester got on my way and I sank with the boat. Not sure if Chester not being here would make a difference, but it surely didn't help. Despite of the terrible situation, I managed to survive by using ageless watches to create light just before before Charlie would hit me, and I went back on the next day to teleport the altar and start the moonstorms. I searched the junk piles to find a potato for the ass struggles, but I didn't get lucky there. But now, after defeating the nightmare warpig in the caves, the boss moves to the junk pile, and you can just bait it to spawn more piles that you can search until you find a potato. Now with the ass struggles, we gather all the items necessary for the Celestial Champion fight, including the experiments after completing the minigame. I got the morb that has been chilling in the meteor biome since the first season, and I took advantage of the moonstorm's full moon to get a moon color staff for summer. And at day 49, I started the Celestial Champion fight. Of course, we do the very special Wanda's alarming clock range interaction against Celestial Champion on the final phase. That's what we call it here. Definitely not cheese. Wink wink. Now, with the longest part of the run actually over with, we tackle the remaining bosses, starting with Rockjaw. And even though I took time collecting lures and stuff to spawn an albatross, she decided to just appear on the first show we found. Not complaining though. And then we killed the moose goose. And then we killed Toadstool, which is a piece of cake when you're dealing insane damage. And then we dealt with Ant Lion. And then after some prepping, we did a little void walking. Now, I definitely had the time to waste looking for the right Tentapillar, but I honestly just can't be bothered potentially wasting an hour in a completely RNG goal. And after the fight, we say hello to Charlie, starting the rifts. A question some might have is why not use the Stepback Watch, and my answer is just because you can do something doesn't really mean you should. It is a viable strategy, but I'm used to the Lazy Explorer, and since the clock is not really better than it, I just don't see any reason to justify using it. Also, I wouldn't want to skill issue at the final stretch of the run. So at day 61, we killed all the OG bosses aside from Berger. To finish all bosses, we have left Berger, the mutated bosses, and Scrappy Werpig. Unfortunately, we can't really force half of these bosses to spawn faster. Berger will only spawn mid-autumn, so Berger and Armored Berger are simply not possible until then. And even after, there's still Crystal Deerclops, which you can only spawn during winter, so the earliest is day 91. So we still have a long way to go, and plenty of time to waste. And we go to the one that is currently available, the Scrappy Werpig, also known as Trashman. This boss's AI is funny. We can basically just run away, force it back to the pile, attack it a couple times while it goes through the trash, and repeat. And once again, you don't have to be Wanda for this strategy, any character can do it. And now, we could kill the mutated Varg, but I want a planar weapon so I can actually trigger the stun mechanic of it. So we wait until day 64, when the first wave of Bright Shades will spawn. People say Wanda is super nerfed late game and that she needs a skill tree ASAP, which I agree with, but it's really not as bad as people make it sound. The only nerf really is the big damage, since you're kinda forced to use the new planar weapons. Everything else stays the same though. But even during this first Bright Shade wave here, you're still dealing more damage than a character with no damage modifiers, and you also got the range on your side. So it still took less than 3 minutes to take them out. Aside from using planar weapons against a few specific enemies, the alarm clock is still king. I also recommend using Dreadstone Helmet against them, until you have access to the Bright Shade or Void gear. You might not know this, but it has 10 planar defense, which is really helpful against them. But now, with a planar weapon in hands, we can kill the mutated Varg. Unfortunately, this fight took me a while because the hounds managed to destroy the pen and eat the bait, probably because I attacked the Varg too close to the hounds. But if you're struggling with this boss, there's one very reliable strategy that you can always use. Just take it to the Beefaloes and watch. And now, with all bosses being time gated, I just waited. At 76, we decided to take out the Shadow Trio and make some Void gear. They're not really bosses since their HP is very low, but here they are, I guess. And at day 79, Berger finally spawned, so we killed him and took out Armored Berger next. And now we have another hour of waiting to do, so I turned on the ear of the KitKun events and went on a quest to find all the kitties. I wonder how long until the KitKuns start dropping the sacks. I wonder if I can do something. Can I give you like a twig? Oh, hey! Huh? I missed it? Oh, it's here! I missed it! First kitty! Yippee! Hey! 4 kitties. Hey! 1 more. That was easy. A little too easy. No, Tycoon! was like father to me. Oh, there it is. Kitty! Oh, don't tell me it's in a satellite. Oh, no, it's there. And now we make the nursery kit. We send all the kitties home so we can get the final special kitty. There we go, it spawned in. All the tiny kitties. Ooh, what if we add ball so the kitties can play with the ball? Check W. Oh no, their Clops is just wrecking my base. What, are you killing Chester? Bloom. Oh my god. What is going on? He's alive! And G, finally, I am free.